Level up. Can I see you as my crush? Level up.
The Steam Spring Sale is live now, and it only lasts a week. So here are 20 recommendations for my strategy game deals. We'll start with some of the heavy-hitting 4X grand strategy. Then we'll survey some fresher titles across the subgenres before diving in to some niche sicko picks at the end. Priced roughly in US dollars and with time cards and links down below for your viewing pleasure, here are my top recommendations for the spring sale. My first entry is a little game called Old World at 90% off. This
You're a pedophile protector. A pedophile protector. Pedophile protector. I was a cop for 9 years. You're a pedophile protector, faggot. You're a pedophile protector. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you.
See that brand new Hyundai Santa Fe? Yeah.
I love my country! You people crap on it! I love my religion! And you people spit on it! Just remember something. I'm here because I want to be here. I let myself be caught because I'm not a coward. I chose to meet my oppressors face to face. You call me a barbarian. And what are you? What, you expect me to weep over 50 civilians? You people kill that number every day!
So Hitler said even in his death he would start World War III. One of the soldiers asked how. Hitler replied, "The day mankind finds out what I was trying to defend this nation from, then that's the day World War III will start. For on that day mankind will learn that I was trying to save my nation from the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Jews. For if Americans win the war, then they will conquer the world and forever be a slave to the Jews." and they would try to conquer God. That's accurate. That's exactly what happened.
Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Because one good thing came out of all of this. They showed themselves. The top 1% of the 1%. The ones in control. The ones who play God without permission. And now I'm going to take them down.
Breaking news, Trumpenstein has decided to finish off the Sand People.
Oh, wow. Probably has absolutely nothing to do with the Epstein files.
Right, like I'm sending my son off to Iran tonight.
Let's see if we can find your son. Timmy, you're going to war. Pack your bags. Israel needs your help.
Haven't you seen Europa, The Last Battle? I'm not dying for the synagogue of Satan. That's actually based.
Good call, Timmy. So all of a sudden, people just forgot about them burning the satanic ball statue. But let's see what it looked like in Iran the morning of February 28th.
Now, here it is, just some peaceful bombs. No word on whether Trumpenstein got the Ayatollah, but he did end up bombing a bunch of children, as Jeffrey Epstein would say. Whoops. But let's hear what the normies are saying about this whole thing.
Do you support Project Epstein Fury?
Of course. Every night I pray that my kids will fight for the Jews. But leave me alone. I've got bread and circuses to get to.
Hey, man, are you glad your taxes are being sent overseas?
Breaking news, Trumpenstein has decided to finish off the Sand People.
Oh, wow. Probably has absolutely nothing to do with the Epstein files.
Right, like I'm sending my son off to Iran tonight.
Let's see if we can find your son. Timmy, you're going to war. Pack your bags. Israel needs your help.
Haven't you seen Europa, The Last Battle? I'm not dying for the synagogue of Satan. That's actually based.
Good call, Timmy. So all of a sudden, people just forgot about them burning the satanic ball statue. But let's see what it looked like in Iran the morning of February 28th.
Now, here it is, just some peaceful bombs. No word on whether Trumpenstein got the Ayatollah, but he did end up bombing a bunch of children, as Jeffrey Epstein would say. Whoops. But let's hear what the normies are saying about this whole thing.
Do you support Project Epstein Fury?
Of course. Every night I pray that my kids will fight for the Jews. But leave me alone. I've got bread and circuses to get to.
Hey, man, are you glad your taxes are being sent overseas?
Dude, my wife just downloaded Hinge last night and $7 for gas? Literally wish I was chosen at this point. How do you feel about sending our troops off to war again?
Oh, gosh, not another damn lefty. Bro, they are 1 week away from a nuke.
Wow, scary. Quick question, do you support the Iran war?
Bro, they're going after every country that doesn't have a Rothschild banking system. And no, I'm not vaxxed.
I think I'm in love.
Thanks, Tom. You should definitely grab her number.
But this just in, a U.S. airstrike has destroyed a school in southern Iran. Ching Chung joins us live from the tragedy.
We're here outside the school where devastation has arisen.
How could anyone do this to innocent people?
Well, they do eat foreskins.
We got 2 Palestinian foreskins and 3 Christian white ones. Yes, chef! Idiot! They want the jerky on top of the pizza. Make it again. Yes, chef!
So how are your foreskins today?
The Chinese ones were a bit sour, but the white ones were divine. Very insightful.
Yeah.
Ching Chong, back to you.
With over 100 innocent girls now obliterated. Vax normies are saying it's chill because they have Persian friends. Tom, go ahead.
Do you hear about the school bombing?
What about the women who are forced to wear burqas? Are you antiseptic or something? You should be celebrating.
Why?
Because I know Iranians,
Yep.
unlike you.
Absolutely retarded. And as these Iranians uncover more and more infants in the rubble, Israeli news is saying they did this to themselves.
You're saying Israel didn't do it?
Are you kidding me? And of course not. It was America, I swear. Just ask them. We're always the victims and never the bad guys.
They're saying they didn't do it. Are you going to take responsibility?
Look, we've been very clear about this. They did it to themselves because they're terrorists and stuff. We're actually just saving them from themselves.
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still investigating.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
I literally can't fathom the amount of mRNA flowing through someone's body to actually swallow this Epstein-level propaganda. But let's hear what Trumpstein, the president of no wars, has to say to the American Goyim.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
So in other words, he had two choices. Let the Steinberg files get out or sacrifice Goyim to protect the pedos.
Well, who cares about Epstein victims? The Dow is nearly 50,000. Yeah.
Let's hear what Anna Kasparian has to say.
Our soldiers are gonna be in Israel, right now as we speak, in order to defend the Israelis. Do the Israelis pay for our military? Are they the ones who are shelling out $1 trillion a year for our military? No, they're not. We pay for our military. Why are our soldiers based in Israel? Why do we have F-22 Raptors in Israel in order to protect Israel?
Hopefully this doesn't take 20 years like the last one.
Well, I'm not dying for Israel. Straight facts.
Right? Like, didn't you silly goy cattle learn from the Iraq War?
What should we do?
Let's ask Max Egan.
That guy's based.
Yeah, what about the service members that are actively deployed now?
Go home. Say no. Protect your families. What, are you going to go and fight a war for these people who we've just established torture, rape, and eat children? This is who you're going to fight.
Shut it down, Max. Your sons and daughters will die for Israel whether you like it or not. Suck on this, Stu Peters. Back to the frickin' Goyslop or you'll end up like Jackie.
Oh gosh, the victim's cranky again.
I actually need a raise, so let's just read the headline.
Ugh, fine. February 28th strikes hit Tehran, Isfahan, and other parts of Iran, resulting in the death of their leader, Ali Khamenei.
Yay, this is so good for democracy.
Dude, do you really want Jewish supremacy?
Yeah, they just like jerky and pizza, but it's all a bunch of conspiracy theories.
Ugh, you are so gay, bro.
Sack the up. We're about to lose this country if you don't grow a pair. We outnumber them 10,000 to 1. Their Iron Dome is getting obliterated. Check this out. Boom, baby. Look at that shit.
They're overwhelming the shit out of that dome.
Dang, they're getting hit hard. I mean, good for Iran, but isn't this going to start World War III?
Yeah, pretty sure this is why they had to get rid of Charlie. Listen to what he said about this.
My whole life, I've been told that Iran is getting a bomb. Iran is getting a bomb. Iran is getting a bomb. Iran is getting a nuclear bomb. And yet here in 2025, they do not have a nuclear bomb. Same people that told us that Iraq was a big threat. The same people that told us the Taliban was a big threat. The evidence shows that every single one of these people that is pushing for a conflict with Iran has been one of the greatest catastrophes in American foreign policy ever. I mean, India has nuclear weapons, Pakistan has nuclear weapons, but lots of things are bad that we shouldn't risk destroying America to stop. And for me, this is a hard and fast red line.
Gosh, I miss Charlie, man.
Same.
But let's see Tel Aviv getting striked.
They're all just hiding in bunkers, though.
I don't care. Bring back Palestine, baby. Back to you, John.
This is the spiritual battle, folks, and God wins in the end, so chin up, soldiers. Boom! I mean, oh no, our greatest ally is getting treated like the sand people. That's so sad.
Oh no, the Khazarians, Chosenites, are getting a taste of their own medicine.
Oh, what a tragedy.
We better stop noticing, right, Shapira Steen?
Just because the Torah says we're not supposed to mass migrate to Israel and we're not actual Jews, doesn't mean we're not perpetual victims, and the sand people need to leave.
Thank you, Shapiro-Stein. We need to come together and fulfill revelation. The Goyim are starting to notice, and we must usher in the digital beast system.
Wait, didn't the Bible say that the Messiah would come before the destruction of the Second Temple?
Yep.
And then it happened in 70 AD, right after Jesus?
You got it.
So doesn't that mean these people are fulfilling Revelation?
That's it. Their so-called Messiah is actually just the Antichrist.
Stop reading the frickin' Bible. We created Christian Zionism so you normies would keep calling us chosen. Daisy, distract the Goyim with your lustful milkers.
Thanks, producer Berg. It's like their women aren't even allowed to have only freaks.
You're so right, Daisy. I'm actually a feminist, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not letting you hit.
Damn, okay.
But the good news is we can finally install the wall kisser.
Yeah, that Islamic guy was so toxic.
We're still not f***ing. Shapiro-Stein, take it away.
Just because we marked Charlie Kirk and I have a small wiener doesn't mean we won't bomb the shit out of Iran for having nukes. Besides, our nukes are even bigger, so we have the right to exist. God said so.
Jeez, he has no chill.
No, for real. Did you see that one veteran get dragged out of the Senate hearing?
The Marine who said no one wants to fight for Israel?
Yep. Check this out. Yep.
Out. No one wants to fight for Israel.
His hand. Oh, his hand.
A U.S. Senator just broke the hand of a Marine. You're a coward.
I swear we're just their little go-away corporation, but let me pull up the senator who broke his arm. Every single Steinowitz. Back to you guys in the studio.
We seriously need to make them register as foreign agents.
Straight up, it's like, respect the troops until one badmouths Israel.
They just like active duty military aged men that are obedient and lethal.
Triple boosted, too.
Fully jabbed, exactly.
Let's go to Elena in Tel Aviv.
We're here in Tel Aviv where a missile hit a military facility, killing one unlucky chosen person. And while Israel bombs children, Israelis are once again dancing in their underground bunkers. Let's see what they're up to. Here they are, just singing their Talmudic songs of genocide while Iranians bury their children. But let's go live to see what's going on in Iran. Ching Chong, what's happening out there? We're here outside the burial site where Iranians are mourning the loss of their people. Mainstream news will not be showing you this, as Israel holds the world hostage with the Samson option, aka nuclear blackmail. And that basically means they're not afraid to use nukes, but not only on their enemies, but us too. Ian, break it down for us.
If our allies let us start to lose any of our wars, we're gonna nuke them too. Because y'all pieces of shit should have had our backs when we were down, and if you don't, f*** you, we're bombing everybody.
Thanks, Ian. And while American Goyim are celebrating, the footage of actual Iranians tells a completely different story. Check this out. As you can see, the Western propaganda is falling apart. They're gathering in mass protest against regime change, while U.S. Israel literally bombs their citizens. But don't take it from me. Let's hear it from the citizens.
Is this happiness about attacking Iran? I doubt they're even Iranians.
Your own parents and relatives are living in this country. Do you really expect a country that has brought prosperity to no one to bring it to you? Why would you think something like that?
Are they Iranian? I don't know what these people are happy about. They're ignorant and senseless people. They're both traitors to their people and traitors to their homeland. Dirty people.
Damn, I guess when you control the media, you can make anything look like a good thing, right?
I mean, how do you think they got 85% of people to take a poisonous vaccine?
I guess that's why they call us cattle, right, Ching Chong?
The U.S. and Israel expected assassinating their leader would mean millions of Iranians would take to the streets and overthrow their government. Instead, millions poured out to mourn and rally around the Iranian flag.
Shut it down! Get your ass back to America, or I'll turn you into a lampshade! Initiate the chemtrails!
Iran, bad.
A quick question. Did you notice the streaks in the sky earlier?
You're a conspiracy theorist. Iran, bad.
What the heck?
Thanks, guys. As you can see, we have a flow of jet stream chemtrails spraying nanoparticulate with aluminum and barium. Expect a heavy metal fog that will be blamed on climate change.
Seems like people are starting to accept the Iran ban.
I think it's the fluoride and heavy metals interacting with their mRNA, but what do I know?
That's based. Let's see what Trumpstein is telling the normies.
That was a tremendous threat to us for many years. 47 years they've been killing our people and killing people from all over the world. And I think we have great support. And I think if we didn't do it first, they would have done it to Israel and give us a shot if that was possible.
Iran bad.
Brought to you by the Jews at BlackRock. Because you're not Joes.
He can't name a single American who has been killed by the Iranians because that hasn't happened. Iranians aren't the ones who for decades have been killing Americans to drag us into wars in the Middle East, into wars for their own territorial expansion. That has been Israel.
Wow, it's almost like no matter who we vote for, we just get Netanyahu.
Right, and this just in, North Korea says they could nuke Israel.
Oh, no. Please don't. That would fix everything.
Yeah, oh, no.
Please, Mr. Kim Jae, do us a favor and don't not do that.
I do love a good Korean barbecue.
Same.
Shut it Get the heck down, Mr. Kim J. I swear, try me again and I press the nuclear activator. I'm this close. Run the freaking commercials or you're all getting nuked.
Have you tried our Goyslop Jr.? Made from 100% missing goyim. Perfect with sports ball and gambling.
I hate myself.
Enjoy cancer.
Goyslop Jr. Jeez, I've literally been craving the filet all week.
Yeah, Jerry loves his bread and circuses.
Stu Peters, wake the normies up.
The Iranians aren't the ones who bombed the USS Liberty. That was Israel. The Iranians aren't the ones who parked a moving van in view of the World Trade Center so they could film its demise and the deaths of thousands of Americans and then throw an impromptu dance party in a street. That was the Israelis.
Look, Stu, just because Mossad agents filmed and danced during the toppling of your little towers and sent napalm and burnt the lifeboats on the USS Liberty, which was an accident, doesn't mean anything. This time it's different. Trust me, I'm chosen. Right, Trumpenstein?
I will always be a friend and a champion to the Jewish people. I have been.
Good goy.
You're not welcome.
Stop controlling our government.
Supporting Israel is gay.
Ching chong. How's it going in Iran?
Large explosions have broken out behind me tonight. An Israeli strike reportedly hit an oil storage site here in Tehran. This was a civilian industrial facility. Over 1,000 innocent casualties, because that's who Israel targets.
Thanks, Ching Chong. Look at those massive pillars of fire being sent into the air.
Why are they targeting innocent civilians?
Let's ask the Jake GTV investigation team. Good question. Well, the Iran's weapon facilities are underground and the chosen people follow the Talmud. Remember their motto? By way of deception, thou shalt do war. Let's hear from the White House.
You realize we're spending $1 billion every day?
Right, but Epstein Files was trending and we had to distract the public. By the way, the Dow is almost at 50,000.
The Dow Jones broke 50,000 4 years ahead of schedule, and the S&P hit 7,000.
The Dow is over 50,000 right now.
Because here we go, the Dow is now above 50,000.
Broke 50,000 on the Dow, with the Dow going to 50,000. So Dow is at 50,000. It was supposed to be maybe, if we were lucky, within by the end of my presidency in 4 years.
So has anyone told them war crimes don't hide sex crimes?
I don't know. Google Trends says otherwise.
Right? There was more uproar over George Floyd than our politicians eating.
Why they call us goy cattle. Thanks, guys. Good thing the Dow hit 50,000. And if you're still not following Jake GTV, you're probably a total pussy. Definitely a loser, most likely. Retarded. You guys psyched about your homeland being bombed or what?
We're finally free!
Congratulations, you made it to the end. That's what I call based. If you want to learn more about the sentient AI being ushered into a city near you, grab my book, The Digital Prison. Otherwise, if you want to keep us on air, just hit the like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Did you demonetize him yet?
Sir, we did. His last 5 of 8 videos.
He's too powerful. Send a false flag to distract the Goyim.
Breaking news, Trumpenstein has decided to finish off the Sand People.
United States is also something that we should have all expected, and something that I'm sure others have said would happen earlier. And contrary to what people in the United States and the West have been told, that Iran has limited drones and limited missiles, and they'll run out after 2 or 3 days, it was clear that they have very large quantities. They've been preparing themselves for war ever since the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, when Iran was surrounded, and they started calling Iran the axis of evil and started saying all options are on the table. So Iran began building all these underground drone bases, missile bases, developing drone and missile technology, and underground factories. As we speak, Iran continues to produce drones and missiles. And there's nothing that the bombing campaign can do about it. In fact, the belief is here that the reason why they're targeting so many civilians and civilian infrastructure is out of frustration that they are unable to stop the missiles and drones.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Professor, I think what's amazing is that we've had several guests on the show that have talked about Iran's strategy here, in the sense that in the beginning they started firing a lot of these older missiles, and this is what a lot of the American and Israeli missile interceptors were actually able to combat. But But from the Iranian perspective, it didn't really matter because it's like you're going to fire all of those older weapons. And now we're seeing some new weapons come out. And I mean, just a couple days ago, a U.S. military base, it was at the Diego Garcia, that was approximately 4,000 kilometers away, was able to be struck, which is unprecedented. And this is something that has caused a lot of concern in the West because they're saying, wow, we had no idea that Iran had this missile capability. Can you give us any insights into, you know, what kind of weapons are left in Iran and what they've got left? Have they just exactly done that, depleted the older stockpile and are now coming out with the big boys?
Well, I haven't asked about Diego Garcia. I've heard two different versions, and I should have asked before your show. I don't know if the Iranians actually carried out that missile strike because I've heard conflicting reports. But what is clear is that until the 12-day war, the Iranians had they put a cap on the range of their missiles up to 2,000 kilometers. But after the 12-day war, my understanding is that since the United States bombed Iran from further away, they may have changed that policy. But I'll ask, and next time we have a conversation, I'll give you more information on that front. I don't think it's all that difficult for Iran to extend the range of its missiles. I'm not an expert, but I think if the warhead is a bit smaller, that it wouldn't be that difficult for them to do this. But I should refrain from this sort of this aspect of the affair. But Iranian missiles, on Iran, a lot of Iranian technology has yet to be revealed.
Got it.
And so, sorry about that. And so, you're right. During the first week or 8 days, Iran almost exclusively used their oldest drones and oldest missiles. Some got through, but they were mostly used to empty the air defenses, and which, of course, as everyone knows, are extraordinarily expensive.
Correct.
So after that was done and the air defenses were depleted in some areas and there were shortages in others, then the Iranians began to mix newer, not the newest, but newer technology with older technology, and gradually they're moving forward with even newer technology now.
Absolutely. Alex?
Well, Tehran is a very large city. It's very at this time of year, it's quite beautiful. The mountains are full of snow to the north, and then that snow gradually melts, and you have that snow is basically what makes the city green, and it's a sprawling city. So sometimes they may bomb the west side of the city, and you won't even hear it on the east side. So I'm living separately from my wife and family. I live in isolation because I'm potentially a target. I am apparently a target because of some. Anyway, on Twitter, they've put a bounty on my head.
Right.
And yeah, it's quite odd. But anyway, so my wife, for example, she's on the other side of the city. My children, they're also separate, and sometimes they hear things I don't. Sometimes I hear things they don't. But sometimes carpet bombing happens. Hospitals have been bombed. Double tap attacks have repeatedly taken place. I've put a clip of one where a woman who survived the first wave was killed in the second wave, and she was filming herself. She was obviously very terrified. A friend of mine witnessed a double tap attack in a square in the center of Tehran. And an Iranian journalist, an Iranian American journalist who works for, I think, Dropsite News, he told me that he went to one of those places where a double tap attack took place, and the survivors were telling him how when the first responders went in to help, then the Americans and the Israelis, or whichever, because they're in this together, they struck the first responders. So that happens. They bombed the central building for the Red Crescent Society. They struck bases belonging to the Red Crescent Society, which is a sister organization of the Red Cross. They've bombed the central building for emergency services in Tehran. In other words, they bombed schools. They bombed stadiums. They bombed gymnasiums. They've bombed apartment blocks. The night before last, they slaughtered 7 kids in one building. I think maybe those kids were there together. Their parents probably put them there together so they'd be less afraid, and they were all killed. So that happens. But if you drive around Tehran during the day, in most places you don't see anything because it's a huge city. It's like New York, but then perhaps bigger than New York. But if you it is bigger than New York. But if you drive around a while, you will see destroyed buildings and infrastructure, and they even bomb police stations, local police stations, because they want to destroy the fabric of society. But most of these buildings were emptied before, at the very beginning of the war, because they knew that's what they were going to do. That's the lesson they learned from the 12-Day War. And so life does go on. It was during Ramadan, so most Iranians were fasting during the last 3 weeks, but a lot of people left the city because the government, when the U.S. on the first day attacked that school, killing 168 little girls and 24 of their teachers and school staff, they shut down all schools and universities. So, and then they encouraged people to leave Tehran, whoever didn't have important things to do. So during the last 3 weeks now, it's not been crowded. Now we're on, it's the Iranian New Year. Today is the second day of because the first day of spring is the Iranian New Year. So we're on the schools are on a 2-week holiday every year. So Tehran continues to be not to be very crowded. But it was getting a bit more crowded during the last 3-4 days before the New Year, but never like normal. So if right now you go out, we're on holiday. This is the holiday season. It's like in the United States during Christmas and the New Year. So if you go outside in Tehran, there'll be very little traffic. One thing that I should point out is that every night across the country, people go to the streets and they participate in huge rallies to support the war effort. And sometimes they bomb these rallies. This is something that you may find like unbelievable. But I was in one of those rallies, which actually, the one that I was at took place. I was at 2 of those rallies that took place during the day on both occasions. In one of them, the missile struck and murdered one of the participants, a woman. And a rally a couple of nights, I think 3 nights ago, was bombed in the city of Anzali. I put footage of the strike on the rally. And another one was struck in the city of Hamadan, I think 5-6 days ago, maybe.
Yeah. We had some technical difficulties. I think Alex's question, a lot of people were saying that Alex didn't have audio there. I thought, just to fill in everybody on that, if we weren't, Alex asked a fantastic question. He just asked the professor, what is life like? What is life like in Tehran? You know, give us a kind of an insight into the daily life there. I mean, this is an incredible insight, which the professor, thank you for answering that. I think what we can really say is the resilience, right? I mean, you have an unprecedented attack on Iran, but yet, right now is the Iranian New Year. People are trying to live their lives. Obviously, life must go on, no matter what happens. But it is absolutely remarkable what the people are going through. Like you said, every single night they are rallying in the streets. Alex, you want to do a sound check? Maybe our comment section. True. Okay. Okay. Alex mic has continued to be muted. Let me.
Well, he said to me, "Do I have a message for Trump and the people, I guess, around Trump?" Basically, what I would say is that everything that Trump has said has turned out to be untrue. And now whether they're feeding him false information or they are feeding him correct information and he doesn't care or is indifferent or just pretends that it's that his wisdom is greater than everyone else. But the reality is the opposite of what he's been saying. The Iranian people have always supported the Islamic Republic of Iran's constitution and the current state. And many polling institutions have done research on this, both in Iran and abroad. The University of Maryland. This is these Western narratives that it's an unpopular regime. It's about to implode. Everyone hates it. These are basically narratives to help justify aggression and hostility, and it hasn't worked. I mean, we had a 12-day war 8-9 months ago. Iran was supposed to be a house of cards that would collapse. It didn't happen. And now again, the same thing. They pretend that it's a house of cards, and it didn't collapse. And people in huge numbers are literally, for a week we didn't have a leader. Yeah. And but the people kept the country together. That, I think, is an extraordinary achievement. For a whole week when they chose a new leader. During that week, it was basically people on the streets running the ship.
Right.
And the second is the information that they feed him, or they don't feed him. I don't know, true or false information about Iran's military capabilities. From the beginning, they said they were going to run out of missiles and drones, and they've destroyed it. The Navy, they've destroyed it. They've destroyed the Air Force. Everything has been destroyed. It's been obliterated. But now he's begging countries across the world to come and help, and they're all saying, "Don't look at me." So, I mean, the Iranian Navy, overwhelmingly, the Navy that's useful for warfare, is in underground tunnels alongside the coast of the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. They're speedboats with missiles that will come out just like the missile cities and drone cities that are underground, and they will come out when the time comes. And just today they struck an F-15. The Iranian air defenses, they put them away and they bring them out to, when they feel it's a good time they think they could bring down aircraft. Everything that he's been told is wrong. And when the Israeli regime carried out that strike on Iran's critical infrastructure, the gas field in South Pars, in the south of the country, Iranians had already said if our critical infrastructure is struck, we will hit back very hard. And they did. And now Trump is threatening to attack Iran's critical infrastructure, and Iran is saying that we're going to hit back very hard on the other side of the Persian Gulf. So everything Iran said, they did. And everything that Trump said will happen didn't happen. So what more can I say, really?
Yeah, no, Professor. I think it's amazing because just last night, Donald Trump. I'm going to read a tweet to everybody. He's very confident, saying, "Look, the United States is blowing Iran off the map. We are weeks ahead of schedule. Their leadership is gone. The Navy's done. Basically, we are doing so amazing." And he blames the Western media. He's like, just like their incompetent election coverage of me, the failing New York Times always gets it wrong. But what's interesting is I replied to that tweet. I just said, these words would carry a lot of weight if the Strait of Hormuz was open, if an F-35 didn't get struck down, like you said, if there was still, it's kind of amazing. We've seen the narrative change so much, right? We saw how on day one, we saw this narrative of, okay, this is going to be a couple days of operation. Again, our blueprint is Venezuela for this conflict. That didn't turn out. But on day 20, we saw the Pentagon asking for $200 billion to continue this war effort. Big conflict there.
Staggering amount of money.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable amount of money. And then I think Professor, you've hit it on very, very correctly, is that Trump right now, I really feel that he's scrambling because if you see, I want a ceasefire. Okay, no, we're going to continue this. Okay, I want this, I want that. There's just a really lack of leadership from the United States side. And I think that Iran has completely overwhelmed both Israel and the United States. That's at least what what we're seeing in real time. I want you to talk a little bit about the Strait of Hormuz and just how important this is, and how Iran is able to control this critical choke point to the world economy, because a lot of people think it's about oil. It actually goes much beyond that. It goes into fertilizer. It also goes into food, for the other Gulf nations. There's a lot of things that are connected to the Strait of Hormuz. I'd like you to break that down for us and for the audience, just so they know how important that is and how Iran is able to really control that.
Sure. Just a couple of things to add to my argument.
Sure.
Trump and Hegseth said that in Yemen they'd win the war and they were destroying the Houthis or Ansarullah, the Yemeni armed forces, and every day they would give updates and say they demolished them. And then after 7 weeks, Trump said they capitulated, and then he walked away. But they didn't capitulate. They continued to fight, and it was Trump that gave up and walked away. And then, of course, in Lebanon, they said that Hezbollah was destroyed. But now we're seeing that Hezbollah on the battlefield, as we speak, is hitting the Israeli regime very hard. So all the information that either Trump's being fed or is either false, or Trump is ignoring reality, and Western media is basically mimicking that sort of nonsense. And what is the Israeli regime doing out of frustration in Lebanon? They are flattening apartment blocks, 20 apartments at a time, just slaughtering people, as they've done in Gaza. That's just who they are. When you are a superior group and you are a chosen people, or you are the master race, then everyone else is Amalek. It doesn't matter if you're Palestinian or Lebanese or Iranian or American or Indian or Chinese. That's how they'll treat everyone else. But the point is that his information, or at least the information that he's telling the public, is not at all accurate, whether it's on Iran or Lebanon or Yemen or elsewhere.
Sure, if I can, and I think the audience can finally hear me now. We found a solution, but anyway, great. My question for you is, since there is no trust in North America anymore for Iranians, no trust in the Europeans, I would say probably no trust in the Middle East at all, this country is going to need help to rebuild itself after being carpet bombed by 20,000 missiles that have fallen from the sky. Two-part question here. who is going to help this nation rebuild itself? And my second question is, how far is Iran willing to go?
Well, then let me combine it because I didn't answer the previous question. I'll combine the two together. Iran is going to go till the very end. It will not back down. And they've said that this is a fight for survival. So they're not going to accept a ceasefire. Because if there is we've already had a ceasefire 8-9 months ago. They regrouped and attacked us again with even greater force. So this time around, the Iranians are saying if there's going to be an end, there has to be change on the ground, not a piece of paper, because no one trusts Trump. He, as just now explained, 1 minute he says one thing, the next minute he says something else. So the Persian Gulf Iran will no longer allow Persian Gulf, these family dictatorships, to be a platform to make threats against Iran. That won't happen. Iran will demand compensation, and it will get it from these countries. It won't allow them to get away with, because they are completely complicit in this war. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible. So Iran is going to demand compensation, and they have the means to make sure that they do compensate Iran. I would like to touch on the Strait of Hormuz just briefly, because I think many people don't quite understand what Trump is trying to do. If Trump takes that island that he keeps talking about, Khark Island, which is in the north of the Persian Gulf, it means nothing. Because that island is where Iran loads oil onto tankers. So at most what he'll do is he'll stop Iran from loading oil onto tankers. Well, that just makes the global crisis worse.
Right.
So it is very close to the Iranian shore. It is a flat island, and the Iranians can constantly bomb it with drones and missiles as they're doing. So all these American soldiers will be much more at risk than they are when they're on the other side of the Persian Gulf, because they're much closer. They won't have time to react to these drones and missiles and other munitions. The second is the Strait of Hormuz. It is a very narrow place. I'm sure a lot of your viewers have seen it because it's in the news. But the thing is that even if the U.S. attacks it, and let's say they take the Strait of Hormuz, and with many casualties and so on, what difference does it make? The Iranians don't block the Strait of Hormuz from the shore. They block it from hundreds of kilometers inside Iranian territory. The missile bases and the drone bases are not on the shore. That's why they're hidden in underground bases. And Iran has decoys everywhere. That's why the Americans and the Israelis have failed in destroying their assets. They're deep underground, and the short-range missiles and medium-range missiles and drones they can quickly take out. They don't need launchers, big launchers, so they can destroy any ship that goes through. And hypothetically, if the Americans are in the Strait of Hormuz, that doesn't mean anything really. So and also, if the U.S. escalates and takes an island or takes Iranian territory in the Strait of Hormuz, Iran will respond in kind. And what will it do? It will target vital assets on the other side of the Persian Gulf. So you're just going to have more destroyed oil installations, more destroyed tankers, more destroyed gas installations, vital infrastructure. And then the Strait of Hormuz literally becomes useless. Because let's say there is a deal at some point in the future between Iran and the United States. Iran gets what it demands and it's over. If there's no more oil, if there's no more gas, if there's no more fertilizer produced, if there are no more tankers to take the oil, then what's the use of the Strait of Hormuz anyway?
Right. Yeah, I think we're looking at a situation where if this continues to escalate, then it really actually is going to influence the supply chains of oil and gas for many years to come, and really be irreversible for many years. So I think Donald Trump and the U.S. administration is playing with fire right now, quite literally. Looking at the economy. I mean, we look at the price of oil right now, Alex. I mean, you and I are finance guys. We're looking at the markets. I mean, there's a lot of destruction coming. And I think what we're seeing right now from the U.S. administration is no ability for an exit ramp. There's certainly, Trump, I think at some point he's going to try to maybe declare a victory. Like he said in that tweet yesterday, we've already, bombed and destroyed everything in Iran. But again, this is why we bring the professor in, because like you said, here we go. Tehran, a huge city, bigger than New York City. People are going in the streets every day. Life continues going on. There's support for the leadership there. The country is moving forward, as you have to do. You have to find a way to move forward here. And like Professor said, there's going to be fighting until the end, until that there is an actual change here. Professor, I have a question about, what is the sentiment in the Middle East right now in regards to Israel and their potential use of a nuclear weapon? We had Jeffrey Sachs on, who had actually said that this is becoming to a tipping point here, where we have to start thinking about that. Is this something that you're potentially worried about, that people are potentially talking about? Is this escalating to a point where Israel gets a little bit out of control and does the unthinkable?
Well, a couple of things. One is that the United States has sacrificed its image across the world for the sake of the Israeli regime by supporting the genocide in Gaza. And Iran's sin is basically because Iran opposes what's being done to the Palestinian people. And now, as Iran strikes these bases and U.S. assets in these Arab regimes in the Persian Gulf, across the Arab world, people are cheering on. They dislike these despots, and they dislike the United States because of its policies. Right. So the United States is basically sacrificing itself for this entity, for this, ethno-supremacist regime that doesn't care about U.S. interests. It just cares about itself. And the very fact that you have this question, you raise this question, it should actually be a very ridiculous question, because why would any sane person ever contemplate using a nuclear weapon? But the very fact that you raise this question is because you think that these people are so immoral and so evil and so irrational that they may actually do this. And I think that shows a lot about what we're dealing with.
Exactly.
Iranian people in Iran do. I mean, I can only give you anecdotal evidence. People in Iran that I know of have discussed this, but it's not going to change any policy, because people feel that it's a fight for our survival. Whether they use a conventional weapon or a nuclear weapon, we're not going to give them what they want. Because we didn't start this war, and we didn't start the previous war, and we didn't start the war in the 1980s. We have to remember that in 1980, Saddam Hussein invaded Iran with U.S. support, and then the West gave him chemical weapons. I survived 2 chemical attacks in the 1980s. Those chemical weapons were specifically provided by Germany, but the West supported it, and many, 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 many thousands of people were slaughtered. In one instance, they bombed the city of Halabja in Iraq, in northern Iraq, Kurdish Iraq. It was in the hands of the opponents of Saddam. And 6,500 people were massacred instantly. So, and then near the end of that war, when it wasn't going well for Saddam, the U.S. entered the war on his behalf, just like the 12-Day War and this war. They started bombing Iran, destroying Iranian ships, destroying Iran oil installations, destroying Iranian naval ships, and they downed an airliner with 290 people that was flying between Bandar Abbas in the south to Dubai. So this is the third war that the United States has launched or participated in directly against Iran. And in Iran, the feeling is that we have to continue until our demands are met. But the thing is that if the Israeli regime is seriously contemplates, or Trump, he doesn't seem all that sane either, if they contemplate using an unconventional weapon, then that would only create an incentive more than an incentive. That, I think, would make countries across the world, including in our region, and Iran, rethink their nuclear posture. And in the era of AI and the swift advancements in high-tech industries, I think many countries will be able to develop nuclear weapons. And why wouldn't they? If they see that nuclear weapons are being used now, then everyone is going to go after nuclear weapons. That would include small countries. So within a few years, you'll probably have many nuclear weapons being used in local conflicts and of course against the Israeli regime as well.
Professor, I just want to tell you that I'm Canadian. I don't know if you know much about me. Cyrus is American. There are a lot of people that are supporting Iran, and my audience as well has, over the last 6 months, expressed their concerns for what's going on in the United States with the Epstein class there. To me, I don't know how the Iranians can withstand this type of aerial bombardment, these threats from the U.S. government that has said within, I think it's now within the next 36 hours, of course, publicly has admitted a war crime in print, saying that they are going to, once again, obliterate the entire electrical system in the country. How are Iranians going to deal with this?
Well, you know better than I that in your continent, they've done the same thing to the Cubans. And it's really amazing that even Trump's opponents, they're not outraged by these statements, as you pointed out, stating that he's going to commit crimes against humanity openly before carrying them out. And you don't see outrage from the Guardian or the New York Times, because left, right, liberal, mainstream left, conservative, it's all Epstein class control. The media is controlled by the oligarchy, and the same people who control the government. So the media, it doesn't matter. There may be infighting, but it's not because of the crimes being committed against other countries. It's because of their own, anger and hostility toward their own infighting. When Trump lost the Supreme Court ruling over tariffs, he was angry. He did I'm sure you recall, a news conference, and he said, I cannot impose $1 of tariffs, but I can destroy countries. And I think at that time he was alluding to Cuba, the fact that he can strangle the country, and no one was shocked. There were no media outlet was saying, this is crazy what he's saying. So the problem in the West is of course this Epstein class and the control they have and what they're doing to the world and to the West itself and to the United States too. Iran has no option but to resist, and they are steadfast. And I think that Iran, the fact that Iran has thousands of years of heritage, and in addition to that, its religious culture, I think, and the role that the grandson of the Prophet, Hussein, played in fighting the despot of his era in support of the oppressed, that is very deep in the collective psyche of Iranians. That story in Karbala and his sister Zainab. If you come to Iran on the anniversary of his martyrdom in Karbala, it will be it will be a different place than any other day. It's just unique that day, those 2 days when they celebrate his resistance. And so there's a strong sense of among Iranians of the need to oppose oppression and to support the oppressed. I have no doubt that Trump will fail, but it will come at a heavy price, not just for Iran, but for the world. If he pushes, I think we are heading for a global economic depression, worse than 1929. And who knows? I mean, I think it's beyond anyone's imagination what that means. Tens, maybe hundreds of people, millions of people would be on the move across the world. I mean, it's, the population today on this planet is, much, much greater than what it was 100 years ago. It's just, the situation is terrible, but we all have to remain optimistic, and we all have to do what we can do to stop things from getting worse. And hopefully there's light. I'm sure there's light at the end of the tunnel at some point, despite the darkness that we face today.
Go ahead, Cyrus.
Well, I wanted to be respectful of Professor's time. Professor, I think you have to run after about 40 minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately.
No problem. I think that's a great segment for you to end on, because it was just a really great message. And I think a message for Alex and myself, and I know our audience as well, is we saw this in the comment section. We just wish you incredible safety, and just thank you for your incredible work. We just pray for you, and, and make sure that you stay safe, Professor. We need to get more voices out there, and we're just very grateful that you could come on the stream. Guys, we worked so hard on the back end. A lot of technical difficulties.
One last thing for the professor. There are independent journalists on their way to Iran to try to get the message out from you. Some of them are friends of Cyrus and I. They are working to get in there to help get the message out. We have had enough as Westerners. The truth needs to be told. And thank you so much for being here tonight, telling our audience. Please be safe.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure being on your show. And God be with both of you and your audience.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Okay, we'll stick around here, Cyrus, and thank you, Professor. Cyrus, do you want to stay on in the format that we're doing right now, or do you want to load up your camera on StreamYard? Up to you, sir.
I think we're good. I mean, we're right here. We're with the people. So, guys, I just want to say thank you all so much. Alex and I have been working on this to get Professor Morandi. We had some technical difficulties, as you said. So I just want to say appreciate all the audience going here.
Thanks, guys.
Now we're kind of
for being with us.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. So, I mean, now we're to the point where it's just going to be Alex and I chatting. But Alex, I mean, a lot of interesting things that we learned during that live stream, that interview with the professor. I think the biggest takeaway that I have is the resilience. I mean, you got to remember, this professor. He has a bounty on his head. I'm sure that he's, like he had mentioned, he was out with the people at night. Walking at night amongst these gatherings, and there was 2 missile attacks. We saw actually a British journalist. I don't know if you saw that clip yesterday, Alex, with in Lebanon when there was a Israeli strike. It was an absolute targeted strike trying to kill the journalist there that was doing the work. Now we know for a fact that unfortunately Israel has killed an unprecedented amount of press members, certainly reporting on Gaza, reporting really on anywhere. And like the professor had mentioned, Israel has now taken to southern Lebanon and is continuing its carnage down there. It is quite remarkable, Alex, just what we're seeing in this war. But I love the resilience from the professor and that message to the end. No matter what, we have to be optimistic about the future and hope for better. I mean, I felt a really good sense of peace from him. What an amazing man! What an amazing man to interview.
Cyrus, you and I have been doing these shows for about 5 years now, and I have to commend you and your platform. A lot of people showed up tonight, and they showed up because they are tired of hearing absolute propaganda all over their TV stations and dealing with, we are talking about an administration that has committed war crimes off the charts here. Somebody is going to have to be held accountable here, whether it's all the members of the Trump administration hauled into courts and thrown into jail. Impeachment has to happen. I know that a lot of things that I'm saying will not happen because people just don't have the power in that country to do it. But something is categorically wrong with America. America is sick to the core. Its allies are sick to the core. Even my Canadian government. And thank God I don't have to pay bloody taxes in Canada anymore, because it is going towards supporting the United States in its journey for change. And, I did a little bit more deep diving into this, wondering what on earth is going on in the financial markets. Yes, we know Brent crude is going up. WTI is going through the roof. But something is very suspect with natural gas. And I'll tell you what I got to understand today. the reason why natural gas has not moved up in price in the United States is because they're using their consumption. And the Americans damn well know that most of Europe, a lot of the Middle East, Thailand's in trouble right now. Sri Lanka's in trouble right now because they are using this natural gas that has skyrocketed, not to the Americans, but to the people that get it from the Strait of Hormuz. And they know that. And this is dirty tactics happening. It's being played out in the financial markets. It's being played out with Iranian lives. And it's being played out with people's pocketbooks on the stock market. You saw that manipulation on Friday? You saw that? You tweeted that.
No.
Unbelievable. The
I
amount
did.
of these people need to be
Crazy.
in jail and behind bars.
Yeah, Alex, that was just remarkable. I'm going to try to bring that up. I'm so pissed off about that because it's remarkable, what we're looking at. I'm going to bring this up to you guys so that we can bring this in. So check this out. We're looking on last Friday. Okay, yeah, I want you guys to understand what happened. Last Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, CBS News reported that President Trump is considering boots on the ground in Iran. Then at 3:43 p.m., I don't want to do a ceasefire with Iran. And then the S&P 500 hit a brand new low for the 2026. Exactly 90 minutes later at 5:13, Trump sends out a tweet saying that he is considering winding down the war with Iran. Between 3:43 p.m. and 5:13 p.m., the S&P had already risen nearly 1% on no news. And by 6:15 p.m., the S&P rallied by 1.8% from its low, adding $900 billion in market cap in just about 90 minutes. And so, I mean, Alex,
let me break that down for you. The market's closed and people can't even react until you start to see odd size of orders going through in the aftermarket and the option market. The average person, I trade the derivatives in option market. Most people, stock exchange is closed. Can't buy Apple, can't sell Apple. Okay. You think the market is closed when New York Stock Exchange closes? It's not. The option market continues to trade through the night. And this is a $700 to $1 quadrillion market that is screwing you. And there's a lot of stuff that is going on in that market after hours that happens. Cyrus, a majority of the investment community have no idea about the option market or the future market. They have no concept of it. And, I've been in it. I've been trading it for 20 years. And what you showed me when I woke up on Saturday morning, I just about fell out of bed when I saw it. I said, wow, they have the audacity to, and we were talking a staggering amount of money. What was the figure that they quoted, the move in the market? How many billions was it?
900 billion.
900 billion. Great payday for the Epstein class and the Trump administration. Well done, guys. Too bad you didn't hit $1 trillion. Unbelievable. And the average person's having a tough time gassing up their car.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, I think at this point, Alex, I mean, and for everybody in our audience, I want to say thanks everybody for coming to the show tonight because we did hit some record numbers as far as guests and people showing up to the stream. We've had a lot of super chats. We were trying so hard on the back end to get everything working. So for those of you that have sent some super chats in and supporting the chat, supporting the show, supporting Professor Morandi, Alex and myself, I want to say thank you for that. But I just think, what's incredible here, guys, is we're looking at a point where every single thing coming out of the White House right now, you have to consider a blatant lie. And I think when we go back to the very beginning days, if we remember that clip, Alex, from what is his name? Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio, who said, we attacked because of Israel, and then he tried to walk that back the next day. You look at Pete Hegseth I mean, there's the flip-flopping that's going on inside the Trump administration is remarkable. There's another thing that I'm kind of noticing on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, or X as we now call it, and that is that we've seen a tremendous amount of MAGA supporters starting to leave Donald Trump and really reverse their support here. And I think what you're seeing is that, unfortunately on Twitter or on X, there's a lot of control from, I think, Elon Musk and the algorithm, because it's remarkable that we're starting to still see this movement as far as, the MAGA movement, the far right voice, I would say the very far right wing voice is very active on X. But I would say that it's not representative of the country here, Alex. You know, I'm here in the United States. People are not happy about this. This is a blatant lie from Donald Trump as far as his campaign promise.
War crimes.
But the sticking point here is that we're now contemplating getting boots on the ground. And the problem is, Alex, is that we've analyzed this before. There really is no logistical way for the United States to actually get men on the ground there. And I think, as the professor pointed out in today's stream that was so brilliant, you know, there is so much technology that Iran has not debuted yet. And you know what's remarkable, Alex? I want to
Tell me.
have this as
And just so you know,
as a
Cyrus,
talking point.
before we carry on, I have posted all, you might not see it on your screen, but I have posted everyone's super chats and supporting for the live stream. If I can just take a moment just to thank everybody one more time from Cyrus's audience and my audience as well. At Jane Penfold 8882, thank you very much for your contribution. Shame on Elon Musk, she said, and X. Sending love from Carlos Joland. Thank you very much for the super chat for Cyrus's channel. Great show. Another super chat from Kiki Mora. Thank you very much for that. I pray for all the people of Iran. Keep strong. Thank you for the super chat as well. And Dark World Secrets DWS DKK 100. Thank you. Great show. Thanks for inviting Dr. Mohammed Marandi on to the program. And last, thank you, Cyrus, for your wonderful discussion.
What's up, Sleepy? You slept the whole weekend away, man.
Well, I'm wondering how far Iran will push this, because they're also fighting two countries, though, with both the U.S. and Israel, which are, you know, both very militaristic in nature, but also two countries that link security to dominance as a form of as a strategy. That is, the U.S. is global primacy as a source for security, while the Israel looks at the regional dominance. So I'm just curious how far the Iranians can push them before they might.
What's up, Sleepy?
Oh, look, you're the one that slept the whole weekend away.
That's what I literally just said to you. I said, where you been? Tired, I guess.
You were gone on Friday. You were gone last night.
No, I was on all Friday night. I was on all night Saturday night.
You were gone all last week, all last Sunday. You're like sleepy old. Eh?
3 lies.
Shocked you're on
in a row.
today.
Yikes.
I'm shocked you're even on today. 3 lies. We all know the truth. We all know who wasn't on last night.
Okay, that's what you say.
You weren't even on during the day yesterday. You were only on for like 3 hours. What? You were on from like 5 to 8, and that was it.
No, I was on.
And even then, you were barely there.
That's not true.
Barely.
No.
Absolutely true.
Wrong.
Might have been the sleepiest I've ever seen you. You know?
I don't know. You don't know.
If you don't know, now you know. Say it. Say it. You know you want to.
What are you talking about?
You just said if you don't know, now you know.
That's what you just said.
Say it. You will.
Illest man.
I am the illest. No. The illest there ever was. You slept the whole weekend away, man. You okay? What's wrong with you?
No, I didn't.
In bed at 8 on a Saturday, you're fucked next weekend. I have so much money down that you're not showing up.
You have money down.
Oh yeah.
That's why everyone says you're sick.
What?
That's why everyone says you're sick. You're sicko.
Okay. Want to bet right now? 10 grand.
Ooh, you know what? Let's hold up. Oh wait, let me think. I want to change those.
Oh, what are we gonna do by you?
What are you gonna do
Look,
by
Guardian
you?
Games incoming.
Sick.
Guardian Games is coming.
What the fuck is that?
You know what Guardian Games is? Stop clowning.
No, nobody knows what Guardian Games is, bro.
I literally explained it to you last week.
No, you didn't. I don't remember that.
Yes. Yeah. Well.
I don't remember
that tracks.
I feel like I would
That
remember if you
tracks.
told me.
Nope. It tracks that you don't remember that.
You're just a bully.
The truth hurts. Do you like the YouTube short I made?
I didn't know you made one. Oh no, I did
Yeah.
see it. I saw it. Yeah, that was fine.
You see, thank you. I knew you'd like it. I was too lazy to get all the sound in.
Well, that I can believe.
Yo. We don't appreciate the disrespect.
You disrespect yourself.
Yo. Why you gotta be saying things like that? You should buy me this Destiny skin.
Nope.
You didn't even play any Valorant this weekend.
Yes, correct.
Crazy. That was a good weekend. We played Valorant without Justin, and we won. It's like,
No, you guys didn't.
what else can you want in a weekend?
You guys would never play without Justin.
Oh, we do fairly often because Sleepy Justin goes to sleep at 8 p.m. Sleepy Justin sounds sleepy already. Are you sleepy?
Nope. I'm never sleepy.
You need to get checked out. Something ain't right there. Let's go say hi to Zer real quick, you know? What?
You mean, don't what? What do you mean what? You know what?
Oh, what? What do you mean,
Engaging
what?
in degeneracy.
Every time I talk to you, I'm engaging in degeneracy.
Zer, what is this? 2010? What?
Oh my god. I don't even remember the year Destiny came out.
Thank God. Yes, I've had to try and block it out.
Don't lie. It was the best. It was the best years of your life.
No, false.
It's been downhill for you ever
Destiny,
since.
That was like League of Legends years. That was like fucking cancer.
What was so bad about it? Nate, what was so bad about Destiny?
What was bad about Destiny?
Yeah.
A lot.
You can't even name anything. Look at that. You can't even name
It was
anything.
horrible.
Like what?
Like
The gunplay?
everything. Yes.
The gunplay?
The whole game.
The gunplay was horrible.
It was like the Overwatch days. Which is a continuation of Overwatch. I do not play games with shitty developers anymore.
As he plays Beaver. Yikes. Big O. Big O. What do they say? Egg on your forehead, sir. Egg on your forehead. Oh, what are we gonna do about you? What is that noise?
What's what noise?
Oh, I swear you're deaf.
What's something wrong with you?
Me?
Yep.
What's wrong with you, my boy? Something is wrong with you.
Okay, cooked.
Da boiled up. Mona binky shama. Tudo da shieto.
We want you to get better, Jared.
Kola doof ba? No winky, smack them all.
Consider using tactical nuclear weapons or something to up the pressure on the Iranians. Because if I was Trump, the only way I can get out of this is more or less to communicate to the Iranians. We want to put an end to this. We can call a ceasefire. Otherwise, we're just going to keep escalating and escalating and escalating. I think the problem is that the Iranians can afford to go up this escalation ladder because, despite the pain at the end of this, at least the U.S. would be leaving the Middle East and its Gulf states, frontline states would be done with essentially. But this is why I'm wondering. I found it interesting that the Strait of Hormuz seems to be really the most sensitive part of this. This is what the Americans can't really leave because, and you see this in his tweets now as well. He tweeted that the Europeans should be helping us open up the Strait of Hormuz. He didn't even call it a military operation. He called it a simple military maneuver, which they don't want to participate in. And he used this to put pressure on the Europeans, saying, well, NATO is simply a paper tiger. The Europeans will regret this for, not helping us, which is, like a light kind of threat. And then he comes back on later, hammering on with another tweet saying, either, you help us with Hormuz, otherwise I might take Greenland. I mean, this is quite an ultimatum. So it doesn't seem like he's ready to give up, to hand over Hormuz, the control of it completely to the Iranians either, as they would use it, of course, to push the Americans out of the region.
Well, his desperation. I mean, he's behaving like a drowning man does. Titanic has sank. You're in icy waters and you're thrashing about trying to figure a way to save yourself. That's where he is. He's in like a poker game with Iran. Only Iran's in a much better position, holds the better cards, and has more money. And they said, they're not as wealthy as the United States, but the Iran's ability to escalate
There's a mysterious box.
is greater than that of the United. Yeah, the United States can use nukes, and then what? Then it's in a nuclear confrontation with Russia, China, North Korea. United States. There's no cost-free way for the United States to use nuclear weapons.
That's cool.
Again, it's difficult to imagine what the world would be like in the aftermath, but business as usual would come to a halt. So the United States is not willing to escalate militarily to the level where they might have a chance of defeating Iran, because it would require probably a 3 million man army, which is going to then shut down much of the economy, and it's going to be focused on producing weapons. Right now they're out. They have virtually exhausted the supply of Patriot PAC-3 missiles. The same for THAADs. If they still have a few left, but they don't have anything in any numbers that could be used in a future conflict. So, Trump wants to get out, but he's a narcissist. He can't admit failure, and Iran doesn't care. Iran's not here to protect Donald Trump's ego.
You agree?
Iran holds
agree
the
what?
moral high ground. It was attacked in a ruthless, vicious manner that was designed to decapitate its leadership and leave the country rudderless. But the Iranians had prepared for that. And now that they're fighting back, we saw, we've got complete air supremacy. Oh, really? That F-35 got shot down yesterday or the day before. And it managed to limp back into friendly territory and land at one of the Gulf Arab airports. But Iran still has a lot of resources, but more importantly, it's got Russia and China in its corner. Russia and China are not leaving Iran to fight this on its own. So they're providing extensive support in terms of aid, economic support, weapons, and drones. They're helping resupply drones. So this thing's going to go, unless Donald Trump agrees to the terms that Iran's going to demand, this war will drag on, and it'll kill his presidency.
Well, desperation has definitely set in, which is why Trump needs an out. But we now see that a lot of U.S. Marines have already departed, heading down towards the region. Not as many as you would think
that's
if
the best quote
you're
right there. That's for you, Dustin.
planning
Just 'cause
on
you can't hear it
taking
doesn't
a
mean
huge,
it isn't there.
massive, mountainous country like Iran, populated by more than 90 million people. What do you think are the objectives here for these boots on the ground? What exactly are they going to snatch small islands? Are they going to invade the Yemen to make sure that the Red Sea is not closed off? I mean, what is it that you think their objective might be?
There is no sane military objective. So let's put this into context. The area along the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian coast, that's about 100-mile long area. In World War II, on D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, that beach area in Normandy was 50 miles long. So what we're talking about is now a territory that's twice the size of Normandy. In Normandy, the United States, Canada, and Britain invaded with 165,000 troops. The two Marine MEUs, they're called Marine Expeditionary Units, the 11th and the 31st, each have between 2,200 and 2,500 Marines. But of those 22, let's say total 5,000 Marines, of those 5,000 Marines, only about 2,000, maybe 2,500 are actual infantry combat on the ground soldiers. Everybody else has a supporting role. So let me see if I got this right. We're going to try to take a territory that's twice the size of the Normandy beach. And I forgot to mention, it's basically sheer cliffs. There are little spots of beach here and there, but cliffs all along the way. Territory that is not easily both attacked and is quite easy for defenders. Oh, and I also forgot that in those cliffs are caves. The Iranians have built caves over the last 35 years and then put in missiles that can be fired at ships in the Persian Gulf. So, this makes absolutely no sense. Oh, and then how are they going to get those Marines on shore? If the ships come in, and each of these MEUs have a ship that looks like an aircraft carrier, and it carries a few F-35Bs that can take off vertically. It's got some helicopters. It's got Ospreys. But those ships, if they get within 500 miles of the Iranian coast, they're going to be attacked just like the Abraham Lincoln was. And the Abraham Lincoln suffered some damage and had to leave the area. So for these Marines to be deployed anywhere, you're going to have to bring the ships in close enough where they're going to be vulnerable to missile and drone attack, as well as Iran has underwater, basically, drone missiles that can be guided like a conventional torpedo, except it's steerable. And then they've got submarine. It doesn't make sense. But let's just assume, well, okay, they get through somehow. They get through the strait and get up to Karg Island, and are able to get all their 5,000 Marines on Karg Island. How do they get resupplied? Number one. Number two, they're in the, I've called the Karg Island it's Snake Island with oil. Snake Island is up in the Black Sea. It's this outcropping of rock that the Ukrainians and Russians have variably landed upon and claimed to control. The problem is there's no protection. You're completely exposed. So if the Marines get onto Karg Island, they're going to be hit with drones and missiles and artillery. It'll be a bloodbath for the United States. So, and you step back and say, okay, what's the goal here? Oh, we're going to shut off the flow of Iranian oil. Well, wait a second. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, just announced they're lifting all the sanctions on Iranian oil because they need the Iranian oil to try to keep the supplies up so the prices don't go through the ceiling and the inflation gets worse than it already is. That's why I said there's the inconsistencies here. So I don't know. I think maybe they're trying to use that as a deception. You bring the Marines in because instead they're going to try to launch a military operation to seize enriched uranium that's inside Iran. Again, an impossible mission, but they're thinking in some very bizarre ways. It's not consistent, and it's certainly not recognizing that there are limits to U.S. power now.
Hi, my name's Edmund DeMarsh. I'm the editor of the Trends Journal. I'm here with Professor Mojave Morandi. It's very early in the morning here in Los Angeles. It's 1:13 a.m. I know in Tehran it's about 11:30 a.m. And
Immediate threat, right?
Sam Cedar, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program Anel Sheline, a research fellow in the Middle East program at the Quincy Institute. Anel, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I guess the first question, there's a lot of questions, obviously, about this that are really basic. Like, why are we doing this? I'm like, or even why is the administration saying we're doing this? Like, or like what is their answer to this?
It's hard to even answer that question because they've been all over the place. You know, coming out today, that pretty shocking statement from Rubio, the idea that we knew Israel was going to attack, and so that would have meant that Iran would have retaliated and hit Americans. So we decided to just go ahead and attack first. You know, I saw analysis on social media that was like, you know, that's like your teenager is going to go crash the car. And so you get drunk and crash the car instead, you know, to make sure your teenager doesn't do it. It's like, just stop your teenager. You know, like, we have such power over the Israeli government, as was evidenced after Israel struck Doha in September. And finally, Trump made clear to Netanyahu that he needed to at least agree to the appearance of a ceasefire. Obviously, that is not actually what happened, but it was very clear that the leverage is there. And all of this argument that Israel is going to do, you know, the U.S. can't really control. No, we provide them with billions of dollars in security assistance every year. And if we actually put our foot down, they have to listen.
Do you believe that?
Are you ready?
I mean, no. Not what you just said, but do you believe Rubio? Do you think that we did that? Because, I mean, we've been building up for over a month, right? We've been getting reports for over a month that we have the largest buildup since the Iraq War, both in terms of naval and air power in the region. At least a month, maybe 2 months. But do you believe that Rubio is being genuine in that explanation?
I mean, my understanding is that Netanyahu has been pushing for this war. Obviously, we saw the U.S. get involved in June, and then Netanyahu kept pushing for the U.S. to re-engage again, and he was clearly pushing on an open door. I think Trump is on a sugar high after the Venezuela operation, and thought, you know, unclear why he would be under this impression that Iran would be in any way similar to Venezuela, given that there's no indication that the administration had really been in touch with anyone inside Iran. I mean, that would have been fairly shocking, just given the dynamics there and the history of the relationship. But again, in Venezuela, they had been in touch with Delcy Rodriguez, also Machado. Like, there were various other people waiting in the wings, willing to kind of become a U.S. proxy, and that simply did not exist in Iran. Furthermore, just the fact that something like getting the U.S. bogged down in another war in the Middle East, this is precisely what he said he wasn't going to do. And I know it's silly to hold Trump to anything he said he was going to do, but I mean, how is this America first? Like, I just don't, in terms of like in a midterm year,
that's important. That's important, right? I mean, I think that's important to note, because when we're looking, I think you're absolutely right that perhaps if the Venezuela operation didn't go the way that it did, and the administration views that as a success because now they have a gun to Rodriguez's head and they're coercing her. If that had not happened, I'm not sure Netanyahu would be able to have convinced Trump this much, because it seems as though Netanyahu and the neocons that Trump has been surrounding himself with recently, although that's not been much of a change, sold him on the weakness of the Iranian regime in a way that does not match the reality. Venezuela is a very different story and has a different history than Iran.
Exactly. And this notion that this was just going to be some easy operation, maybe he felt that the assassination of Qasem Soleimani very early in 2020, he also felt that was successful and there weren't major consequences that he really experienced as a result. But this is very different. And again, as Sam, back to your question about what are they saying they're trying to do? They keep shifting what they're saying. That sometimes it's regime change, then you have Bridge Colby coming out and saying, no, it's not regime change. And then you have them lengthening the timeline from, we're just going to, we'll go 48 hours and then we'll see if they want to come back to the table. And now it's like, no, it's going to be 4 to 5 weeks. And now maybe it's going to be a ground invasion. Trump being very clear that he doesn't have the yips about putting troops on the ground. I mean, this is crazy. Well, and it's a country of 90 million people. I mean, Iraq is much smaller in 2003, and is just a completely and was a complete debacle.
Okay, I think it's I think saying that like Trump has just got rolled in some way, or is some amount of crazy and stupid. It's taken for granted, that Netanyahu's wanted to do this for 40 years, but what does Netanyahu think was going to happen? I'm not an expert on these things at all, but my understanding about the Iranian government is that there is no, we kill Khomeini and it's and the government collapses. It is very not necessarily decentralized, but institutionalized at this point. And this is not a house of cards. It's actually constructed in a way that is rather durable. What does Netanyahu expect? Like in his fantasy, does he want American troops on the ground and is okay with a 20-year quagmire for America?
I mean, I don't think Netanyahu has any qualms about Americans dying in this war. I think that's been his objective from the beginning, is to get the U.S. to take out Iran such that it would no longer pose any sort of threat. Again, the idea that Iran posed an actual threat to Israel when Israel is the nuclear armed state and Iran is not. I've been shocked by the number of people that have said, oh, is this going to go nuclear? Like, no, they don't have nuclear weapons. It's like, what? Israel's the nuclear armed power. But I think what Netanyahu is hoping for is regime collapse. He wants the country to fall apart. We've seen this in addition with the targeting of border areas, in particular the border with Iraq, where you have Kurdish militias, right, theoretically that could come in, other ethnic minority groups inside Iran. I think he's banking on the entire country simply falling apart, which would be extremely destabilizing for the whole region. In particular, you think about countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, like all the America's Gulf partners on the other side of the Persian Gulf, who've been pushing for this not to happen, who've been pushing very hard for diplomacy. But I think from Netanyahu's perspective, he's not concerned by that. The idea, first, it's so, for as someone who grew up with the war on terror model and this idea that like you can't have these ungoverned spaces and it's better to have, a strong authoritarian government in place than a vacuum. This is it's just sort of shocking to think that Trump has sort of bought into Netanyahu's thinking, which is that total chaos in Iran is somehow desirable.
But wait, I just want to ask you one more question about that. Do the other Gulf states, are they, like, what is the I mean, I understand it from Netanyahu's perspective. A balkanized Iran, an Iran that is engaged in a civil war, an Iran that is a failed state. I mean, I don't know how you get there other than maybe 10 years of American, boots on the ground in some type of massive war, which just seems to me to be an impossibility to sustain in the way that Iraq was. But if that were to happen, why would that not necessarily be in the interest of, let's say, MBS in Saudi Arabia? Like, I mean, they have always been traditionally rivals. I imagine, from their perspective, perhaps a decentralized powers in Iran might make them ascend more. Is that not the case?
So I think that may have been the case a few years ago when the tension with Iran, especially between Saudi Arabia and Iran, was so high. I think that was when you did tend to hear a lot more bellicosity, this sort of rhetoric coming out of Riyadh. But I think more recently, because it has become so clear to the Saudis and the Qataris, the Omanis, that the U.S. security guarantee, alleged security, is not actually there. And we're actually seeing that now, where you have the U.S. concentrating its defenses and the missile interceptors to protect Israel and not to protect these GCC countries that have given Trump personally vast amounts of money, as well as invested in the U.S. economy, enormous amounts of money that you know, obviously there's a lot of corruption happening there, but they would have a reasonable assumption that they sort of bought a degree of loyalty and protection as a result. And instead what they're finding is, no, the US is not going to be there to protect them. And so this is, and this isn't the first time this has happened. You think about the Iranian attack on the Abqaiq facilities in 2019, which Trump responded to, essentially saying, well, you know, they struck the Saudis, they didn't strike us. And it was after that you then saw MBS initiating this process that resulted in normalization with Tehran in early 2023, that he decided he couldn't count on the US anymore. He was just going to go ahead and cool down these tensions and just try to find a modus vivendi with Tehran. Obviously, you had the Qataris and Omanis that have essentially been sort of interlocutors with Iran, that have had a closer relationship. But just in general, a regional war, as well as the possibility of just sort of smuggling or trafficking, Captagon. Like when I was in Saudi Arabia in December, this is what they were articulating, was this concern that the US and Israel were going to launch this extreme instability, which is completely incompatible with MBS's Vision 2030, whereby he has staked his credibility and legitimacy on transforming the Saudi economy, to be clear, in an extremely authoritarian manner, but in hopes of reducing their reliance on oil, moving towards a post-oil economy, and as well as employing women has been a significant component of that. But he needs foreign direct investment. He needs tourists. He needs the region to be stable, the same way Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Doha, these cities depend on this perception of stability, which has now been shattered.
Iran probably knows that, and that's probably part of, I mean, that's probably the weakest point in which they can, or the point where they can exercise as much influence.
Yeah, the tourism piece that we were talking about this before. There were videos of tourists that were saying, how could this happen here? I mean, their pivot away from oil is going to be, they want more stability in the region for that reason. There was an item in Middle East Eye about how the U.S. is, quote, stonewalling requests from Gulf states to replenish their interceptors. So that fits into what you're saying there. And you also see that they're warming to China. China was part of brokering some of those talks between the Iranians and the Saudis recently. And so they are keeping their options open to a degree.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out. Sam Cedar on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program Perry Bacon Jr., staff writer at the New Republic, host of the New Republic podcast and show, I guess, right now with Perry Bacon. Perry, it's been too long. It's been like 2 or 3 years, actually, and I was shocked by that. But it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We were just saying before we came on, like, what a crap show. And you've been talking about, like, we've had to talk about Donald Trump for 10 years.
Welcome back. We are joined again by Professor Said Mohammed Marandi, a professor at Tehran University and also a former advisor to Iran's nuclear negotiation team. Thank you, as always, for coming on the program. We see that this is quite troubling times. Israel has attacked the nuclear power plants at Bushehr and Natanz, and Iran has retaliated against the city of Dimona, where the Israelis have their own nuclear plants. This was not an attack on the nuclear plant, apparently, but nearby in terms of hitting the city. So it does seem that we could be moving to a de facto nuclear war if this is the new trend that is attacking nuclear facilities with the possibility of a nuclear fallout. And making matters worse, we see that Trump gave Iran this ultimatum of 48 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz, essentially capitulate. Otherwise, they would start hitting Iran's largest energy fields. And we see that the Iranian military headquarters, if I get this right, warned that if the U.S. would carry through on these threats, then they would knock out the energy facilities, and desalination plants across the Gulf states would essentially be the end of this this state. So we're looking almost towards total war here. I was wondering if you can give me your assessment of what is happening, because this seems like uncontrolled escalation at this point.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Glenn. It's always a pleasure being on your show. Yes, but we have to keep in mind, of course, and I know your audience knows this, but Western media, for some reason, pretends as if this were not the case. The war began with U.S.-Israeli aggression, like 8-9 months ago. And every attack was met with a response. In other words, the Iranians are retaliating. They're not initiating anything. So the attack last night on the Israeli regime and on buildings linked to their nuclear program was in response to their strike on Iranian nuclear facility. And Iran's response to escalation has already been seen by all of us when the Israeli regime, with U.S. coordination, there's no doubt about that, when they struck Iran's vital gas installation in the South Pars gas field, the Iranians swiftly responded and destroyed significant parts of Qatar's gas facilities and its LNG facilities in particular, and Saudi and Emirati energy facilities. And the reason why Iran did that was to make sure that the United States didn't go further. And then we saw Trump post on social media that the Israeli regime won't do this again. Of course, he then made threats against Iran, but that was to cover basically this retreat, the fact that he wanted to back down. But of course, Trump is Trump. And he says one thing now, and then literally an hour later, he'll say something very different. So his promises that the Israeli regime will not strike again don't mean anything to the Iranians. They will always, when it comes to the United States, plan for the worst, and especially when it's Trump. You recall, before the war, we had this discussion about whether there will be a war. I always said that Iran is planning for the worst. It doesn't care what Trump says. The same is true now. So now Trump is making another threat, and that is that he will destroy Iran's vital infrastructure and target its electrical power plants. He already made that threat before, and Dr. Larijani tweeted that if that happens, as you pointed out earlier, there will be massive retaliation. And nothing happened back then. After Iran's response to the attack on the
South Pars gas field, it's clear what Iran is going to do if the United States does carry out this threat. And that would mean that the world will head towards a global economic catastrophe, something that I've been saying for many years. Before Corona, I actually had an interview on Press TV that went viral back then. I said exactly what we're now seeing. If Iran's vital infrastructure is destroyed, Iran will destroy everything on the other side of the Persian Gulf, because these regimes are all engaged in warfare against Iran. They've allowed the United States to use the airspace. They've allowed the United States to use bases. They've allowed the United States to use their land outside the bases. They not only allow jets to fly over to bomb Iran, but they allow tankers to refuel those jets. They do everything necessary to kill Iranians. So they are fully complicit. And a strike targeting Iran's key or vital infrastructure is a strike to target the Iranian nation. And of course, a major crime against humanity, which in the West doesn't mean anything, because after Trump's threat last night, we didn't see any Western media say that this is outrageous or that this is a threat against over 90 million people. No, because Western media collectively, they are Epstein class controlled. So it doesn't matter if it's The Guardian or Breitbart, they're all the same when it comes to empire. So this means, if he carries out this attack, that the energy crisis will be permanent and that the global economy will collapse. And that will have implications that are beyond my imagination. I can think of horrible things. Hundreds of millions of people on the move, starvation, the collapse of industry. I can think of many, many things. But it will be because of Trump. And if Iran is forced to destroy that key infrastructure, then it doesn't matter if there's an end to the hostilities and Iran allows the Strait of Hormuz to be open, because there will be no oil or gas to go through it and no tankers to take that energy or petrochemicals or anything else. So we are where we are, but I just want to stress that Iran didn't push us here. Iran's threats are being made so that the United States doesn't do anything stupid. I mean, this whole war is stupid. It is barbaric. It is inhumane, and it is fully supported by the West and its regional proxies, as we saw Erdogan and Sisi and Abdullah and Jordan and these regimes in the Persian Gulf condemned Iran for retaliation against U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf, and they didn't even mention the Israeli and American war of aggression on Iran, because they're in the American camp. The UN Security Council, too, condemned Iran and refused to even acknowledge this assault on the country. So Iran is on its own. It has to carry out its threats of retaliation. Otherwise, the United States will bomb Iran and destroy asset after asset. Vital infrastructure throughout the country will be destroyed. The only way to stop it is to have deterrence, and for that deterrence to be used after credible warnings are given. And that is where we are right now. I also saw the G7 came out with a statement condemning Iran for retaliating. And as you said, no mention of the second surprise attack, the destruction of Iran's energy, civilian infrastructure, or any reference to international law. It was just condemning Iran for retaliating. And I saw you also made a comment that it would have been if the situation was reversed, how absurd it would be. That is, if China was putting its missiles in Canada, launching them at the United States, and somehow then Canada declares neutrality thereafter. I mean, it doesn't really make much sense at all. And I think, but nonetheless, Iran can't strike the mainland in the U.S. and the rules appears to be that Iran isn't allowed, according to its rules, to attack the ones who are actually attacking Iran. So it is an interesting efforts to dictate the rules of this war. But as you suggest, it's not actually working. But is this an accidental escalation which is out of control, or do you see this being deliberate on Trump's side, that he's saying essentially, listen, Iran, either you capitulate, or, which is essentially a ceasefire, or you accept, or we're going to go up the escalation ladder? Because the whole assumption is premised on the notion that the U.S. has escalation dominance. That means the U.S. can bring it up to a certain amount of pain in which Iran would have to be the one who folds first. But where do you see this going? Because we're not at the end stop, obviously. We're rushing up quite quickly. And the nuclear power plants, I found this to be just extraordinary, because what would happen if Israel and the U.S. would then destroy a nuclear plant, a reactor, and there would be some nuclear fallout like Chernobyl? How do you see the war? Well, how is this essentially the top of the escalation ladder, or how would Iran, I guess, do a tit for tat if this would happen?
The Iranians believe that if there's escalation, they will be the ones who have control, because there are far more assets on the other side of the Persian Gulf for Iran to destroy. And the implications for the West would be far greater than what they can do to Iran. Iran has been sanctioned for decades. And it will slowly rebuild the vital infrastructure that is destroyed. But when the global economy collapses and the U.S. economy collapses, I think that will be an unprecedented situation for the American people. And I think that will destabilize the United States and bring Trump's presidency to an end. But in any case, that's all, that's a hypothetical right now. What I think is probably going to happen is that, the Iranians, as we've discussed, have no faith in international bodies. We also saw that during the 12-day war, where Iran was condemned by the West when it was attacked, and the UN Security Council refused to take any action. But let's say that the Israeli regime strikes the nuclear power plant in Bushehr alongside the Persian Gulf. That radioactivity would contaminate the Persian Gulf, and thus it would contaminate oil and gas. And so the Israeli regime itself will be, or the Americans, would be destroying the global economy with that single move. And as I said, if the global economy collapses, that's the end of the U.S. empire. And the world will blame the United States and Zionism, first and foremost, for this catastrophe. The Israeli regime will not benefit in the long term either. It will also be devastated by the collapse of the global economy, but more importantly, by the collapse of their sponsor. The regime that enables the Israeli regime to behave in this manner would be severely damaged, and already across the West and in the United States in particular, animosity towards the Israeli regime is rising. We see the resignation of Joe Kent and his subsequent interviews. We see the polling and the rising anger towards the Israeli regime. And if, of course, this war continues and the energy costs continue to rise, anger towards Trump, Netanyahu, and the Israeli regime
will rise with it because Americans will know who to blame. They started the war. It was unprovoked, especially since Trump campaigned on ending the forever wars. Of course, he campaigned on a lot of other things too, and he didn't carry out any of them almost. The Epstein files and so on. So I don't see a situation where the United States can have escalation dominance. I think the Iranians have that escalation dominance. And more importantly, if we have escalation and Iran destroys the assets on the other side of the Persian Gulf, those regimes will fall. That will be the end of these regimes. And we still haven't seen the axis of resistance escalate either. We see Hezbollah fighting very effectively in southern Lebanon and hitting the Israeli regime very hard. But the resistance in Iraq is still striking at U.S. assets, but it still is not showing its hand. And of course, in Yemen, they said they're going to enter, but they haven't yet. And the Iranians, they have much more up their sleeves than what they've shown so far. And I think the very fact that all U.S. Estimates being wrong about the number of missiles and drones that Iran has and so on, I think that shows that they really have no idea what Iran can do. And simultaneously, we have to keep into account the fact that the Iranian people are fully supportive of the war. Every night, huge crowds gather across the country. These people don't get tired. They go out every single night on the streets, during the day, on the streets, during Eid prayers, under airstrikes, missile strikes, under rain and snow. They've shown how steadfast they are. This is not a country that the United States can defeat. And the circumstances where the world's energy markets are fully dependent on energy coming from the Persian Gulf and the Caucasus, because if the war expands, have no doubt that oil and gas assets in the Republic of Azerbaijan will be destroyed too. Have zero doubt. They will be finished because the regime in Azerbaijan, another family dictatorship, is allied to the Israeli regime in the United States. So it is antagonistic towards the Iranian people. We'll have to add that to everything else. This is not a winnable war for the United States. So will Trump escalate or will he back down? I don't think anyone knows. I mean, I don't think he's predictable. I don't think even Trump knows. I don't think anyone around him knows. He can go either way, and then either way that he goes, again, he could do a U-turn, but the damage will be done. So if he strikes, let's say, an Iranian electrical power plant, Iran will probably do much greater damage to the other side because it has to make sure that the message is received. Then he may back down. Or maybe he won't even attack. Or then maybe he will further escalate. Who knows what he will do? But regardless what happens, I think things are going to get worse. And then we have the added issue of the U.S. preparing itself for invading Iranian territory. And I think that will be also equally disastrous. Because if the United States takes Iranian territory, that would be an escalation. And that would be damage to Iran's vital infrastructure. And thus Iran will also have to retaliate against those Arab dictatorships and U.S. assets there and other assets because those regimes are complicit in the war. So as we move forward, all I can see is escalation unless the Trump regime declares victory and walks away, like with Yemen. But even then, Glenn, a lot of damage has already been done, and each day that goes by, there will be further damage. But even if Trump walks away, Iran is not going to accept the ceasefire. The facts on the ground will have to change. Iran will make sure that regional neighboring countries will no longer be a threat to Iran. It'll make sure it will get compensation, either through by using the Strait of Hormuz oil will directly force these regimes to pay for all the damage that they've done to the Iranian people and all the deaths that they've caused through their complicity. I have no doubt that walking away will not be a simple solution either. It's not as if the United States declares a ceasefire and Iran will then immediately open the Strait of Hormuz. That's not going to happen.
Well, Trump going back and forth, one example would be the Strait of Hormuz, because he did indicate that, well, it's not our problem, we'll walk away. It's countries of the region that should take care of this. We're already done. And then, of course, the following day, he now makes this threat of what is essentially total war. That is, either open it 48 hours or we destroy everything. I mean, this is, as you say, it's a bit all over the place. This happens within a few hours in between. Those are completely different positions. But when he came with that first tweet, I thought, again, it's very strange. This is how wars are declared now by tweets. But I thought that this was an off-ramp. That is, as you suggest, if the U.S. wants to get out of this, it can simply declare victory and go home, as it did in Yemen. But the problem, of course, is the Strait of Hormuz, because, as you said, this won't be opened. This will take on a very different format. And so I thought when Trump tweeted that, well, this is not our problem, the countries of the region should worry about it. It doesn't really work that way either, because, as you suggest now, Iran it's already setting up, it seems, like selective access or essentially nationalizing the strait. That is conditioning who can transit. And as you suggest, it could have different functions. Countries, it could be a way of compelling the Gulf states to pay reparation for the damage they have done to Iran in this attack. It can be, compelling them to expel the U.S. bases. So this, again, won't happen again. Some have suggested as well that it could demand countries stop trading their oil in the U.S. dollar, which would then dismantle the petrodollar system that links U.S. military to the region. So there's a lot Iran can do, but this is all requiring Iran to have this selective access to the Strait of Hormuz to end, this decades-long campaign against Iran. So it doesn't seem clear to me where the U.S. will actually go from here. But one of the things they will do, it appears, is this. Sending troops to the region. We see now the 82nd Airborne apparently being on the way, with seeing this B-52 bombers with the bunker busters on their way. So, what is it that you expect now over the next 2 days?
Well, the United States has been using bunker busters regularly, and it's been bombing Iran for 22 days now, and there's nothing more that they can really do. And as I said earlier, Iran has escalation dominance. Iran still hasn't shown its hand, nor has the axis of resistance collectively shown their hand, its members. The United States can attempt to take territory, but Iran will destroy assets on the other side of the Persian Gulf. But more importantly, Glenn, the armed forces in the resistance in Yemen, in Iraq, and of course in Iran, they're far greater in number and far more competent than the military forces in the U.S. can. I mean, Qatar doesn't have a real standing army, nor does Bahrain, nor does the Emirates, nor does Kuwait. And Saudi Arabia has already shown its incompetence. So what if ground forces, if the United States uses ground forces, then what about ground forces entering Kuwait and moving into Saudi Arabia from the north, and from Yemen to the southwest towards the north and towards the east? Who's going to stop them? And then simultaneously you'll have Iranians striking all those key oil and gas installations and the vital infrastructure in retaliation. How is the United States ever going to win that? It's an impossible scenario for the United States. and it will be a colossal defeat. What we're seeing right now is a president in the United States that has completely discredited the country because he has lied so many times and he's been deceptive so many times and he's contradicted himself so many times. Nothing that he says means anything to anyone. Not that the United States was an honest entity before Trump. I mean, we signed a nuclear deal with Obama and he violated the deal from day one. And it was systematic and progressively the violations grew until Trump became president and ultimately tore up the deal. But Trump is in a class of his own. And so even if Trump signs a piece of paper saying, okay, we're finished and we'll go, we'll walk away, the war's over, that will mean nothing to Iran. The facts on the ground will have to change before Iran moves in a different direction because Trump has zero credibility.
Well, regarding what you said, we don't know yet the cards that Iran has to play. There's a lot of uncertain. Again, this is why many countries or many people, irrespective of their feeling towards Iran, warned against this war. It's too many unknown variables. It's not like previous wars of America. They can't control that. All of these variables, but one of them, of course, will be the missile range. We don't know much about the missile range of Iran. This could be, problematic for if the Europeans deepen their involvement in this war. As you said, this axis of resistance. We don't know if Yemen will, come online and shut down this Red Sea. We see that Iraq is being now. Well, the European troops are withdrawing from Iraq, which is interesting because the Iraqi parliament has previously voted for foreign troops to leave. Well, they wouldn't leave, but so it begs the question whether or not that they would actually be allowed to return after this whole thing is over. I'm doubtful. But also, if Iran hits the desalination plants in the Gulf states, as been suggested, what are the consequences of, especially the desalination plants? Or if this ends up with nuclear targets, or is there any other cards? Because you mentioned Azerbaijan. To be honest, that hadn't really entered my mind yet that this could also start. Well, I know that the relations are antagonistic. I know they're an important energy hub especially for the Europeans to skirt both the Iranians and the Russians. But what other cards do you think Iran may play as we continue up this escalation ladder?
Well, as the Aliyev regime in Baku is sandwiched between Iran and Russia, and he doesn't have many friends in Moscow or in Tehran. So, of course, that is not good news. In Iraq, the Iraqi resistance will, if I'm guessing that we move towards escalation, they will take northern Iraq and end the Kurdish local government there permanently, because they've been so closely associated with the Mossad and the CIA for all these years. And the Iraqi resistance can easily move into the Arabian Peninsula. Iran would be able to destroy the vital infrastructure in retaliation to any escalation due to their role in this. And then there's Yemen, that they can shut the Red Sea. They can permanently end the remaining Saudi oil exports, and they can also move towards the Persian Gulf region, and Iran can destroy these regimes as they advance. So you will no longer see any of these ruling families in any of these countries, and I think that would be that would coincide with the global economic collapse like no other. It will be far worse than 1929. And if Europeans and if right-wing Europeans and MAGA people in the United States are unhappy about immigration, then I think they should beware that the number of people that will be moving in their direction from Africa, Latin America, and Asia will probably be 20, 30-fold. and at a time when their own economies will be collapsing. The only reason why people will be moving in that direction will be because that's the traditional direction that they've been moving towards all these years because of all these wars and all the crimes that have been committed across these different continents. So it looks very dark. No doubt about it. There's no way to make this look non-catastrophic. Even if Trump is reined in, even if he is removed from power, before he takes the final step of targeting Iranian vital infrastructure, the damage already that has been inflicted on the world is very significant, and it will play out even if it ends today, which it won't. Iran will not accept a ceasefire. As I said, the facts on the ground will have to change. But even if hypothetically, miraculously, Trump had a heart attack now, and the vice president took over and said, okay, we're ending this, a lot of damage has been done. Iran's demands will have to be met. The global economy will suffer. And every day that the war continues, even at the current level, the catastrophe for the global economy is growing. And of course, any escalation will make it far worse. So it's nothing, there's no good news on any front. And since Trump is a lunatic, he's abnormal, he's unstable, as long as he's president, no one can predict tomorrow.
Yeah, I always, regarding the refugee issue, I always hear the argument that, why don't Muslim countries accept Muslim refugees? Why do none of them do so? Why do they always only go to Western countries? I think it lost on many people that the country in the world that takes the most refugees is Iran. And
That's right.
It's not... but I hear this so often, it kind of blows my mind that I think Turkey is on the second place, but still, this is almost presented as like an inconvenient fact, but it's so, it's very strange. I don't know where the perceptions come from, but yeah, of course, if this whole region blows up, then of course Iran is not a position to host the refugees from this. If anything, you might have Iranian refugees as well. So it's very it's just you can see the problems piling up, and the same people who always warn against more refugees are the ones who always cause them. So it's very strange. They cheered on the destruction of Libya and Syria, and then they cry out when all these refugees come into Europe. But I guess my last question though is about another arena or area that the Americans could escalate, which is to bring in their proxies. That is, they pushed very hard. We see now some reports that Saudi Arabia is considering joining more directly, but of course they've been pressured very heavily. You've seen Lindsey Graham more or less threatening Saudi Arabia, if they don't fall in line and join in, then this will have consequences for them. We saw the Kurdish proxy thing fall apart. The Azerbaijanis didn't join, but in this latest tweet, as Trump sends a lot of them, he warned though that the Europeans that why aren't you sending your soldiers and your ships, and then essentially indirectly threatening NATO, saying, well, this is just a paper tiger. Then he comes with also his next threat, which is a very, very direct ultimatum, where he essentially writes, either you send your troops to fight Iran or we will take Greenland. This is alliance of values, but it is interesting. But how do you see this? What would be, do you see it likely, the Europeans, for example, joining in, or the Saudis, or how do you see this playing out?
Well, before that, I should also point out the petrochemical and fertilizer crisis that is looming. that is no less significant than oil or LNG, if not more, especially if there's a global economic collapse and agriculture becomes even much more important than even now for the survival of so many billions of people, literally. As you were explaining the recent writings of Trump, I was thinking about the last days of Hitler and his rantings and his, raving. And it's not all that dissimilar. I think basically what we're seeing is an empire collapsing, and there's really no room for maneuver for Iran. That we cannot show the flexibility that we showed in the past, and we were very flexible. When the Israeli regime bombed our embassy, our response was not that severe, and yet the Europeans and the West condemned us or supported the Israelis for bombing our embassy. When General Soleimani was murdered in Iraq, as he was going to meet the Prime Minister of Iraq with an official invitation, the Iranian response was there was a response, but it was not equal to what the United States did, and or what the Qataris did, because those drones came from Doha. And during the 12-day war, which was a victory for Iran, Iran accepted a halt in hostilities. Some thought that Iran should have continued. I personally think that Iran did the right thing, because immediately, as we discussed earlier, Iran prepared for a bigger war. They knew something bigger was happening, and they wanted to swiftly change anything, and that's why, but that's why, and I can say this to you, I don't think it's a problem. Iran, the number of launchers that Iran has lost in the last 22 days is far, far less than what it lost during the 12 days. And it has been a huge achievement. That's just one change. I mean, a lot of the strikes on Iran, they basically hit empty buildings because Iran was prepared. There are lots of changes were made. So I think that Iran did the right thing. But in any case, Iran, in all those previous instances, the murder of martyr Ismail Haniyeh, and the other atrocities carried out in Lebanon and Iran and by the Israeli regime, the Iranian response has always been, I think, mild, and to prevent escalation. But now there's no room for maneuver anymore. The Iranians will go all the way. This is a fight for survival. We've been flexible as much as possible, but here there's no more room for flexibility. So we will go toe to toe with the Americans. And as the escalation, as we go up the escalation ladder, I think there's no doubt that the Americans will, the Trump regime will fail to keep up, and with the collapse, I think Trump's presidency will end. So I don't believe that the Americans can use Kurds. If they try that, the Kurdish terrorists, Iranian Kurds don't support the United States, Mossad, and the Israeli regime. And the Iraqi resistance in Iran will take that area. If they could, they would have done it already, these terrorists. Or Azerbaijan, if they get it pushed too hard. I mean, if you look at the rallies and the demonstrations across Tabriz and in Azeri cities, Tehran is a half Azeri city, they will just walk right over Aliyev's regime. They'll just take it. So I don't see the U.S. really having any options. That there are none that will work well for the United States. And ultimately, Glenn, Iran is very happy with its current borders. But if the United States tries to change the borders, I'm quite confident that Iran will grow larger in size and it will take new territory. And that's how the war will end. So it would be smart for the United States not to move in that direction either. And while all this is happening, and the United States is calling on the Europeans, they've obliterated Iran, but they're threatening the Europeans and the world and Iran about the Strait of Hormuz. But Europe is already losing the war in Ukraine. And as the situation in our region grows more dangerous, and as the price of energy rises, Russia is more empowered, Europe is weaker, so the Russians will be able to push more swiftly into the territories and probably take Odessa as well and dictate the terms. So the Europeans are not in a position to do much about the Israeli regime and Trump's demands. At the end of the day, Trump is willing to sacrifice everything, the world, for Zionism and for the Israeli regime. Now, is it because he's done that horrible things to little girls? Is it because of the hold that the Adelsons have over him? Is it because of a host of different issues? Is it because of his son-in-law and his daughter? Or maybe he's been convinced that he has some sort of, being a person who has no morality near the end of his life as he's growing very old and increasingly erratic. Maybe he believes that he has been given some mission in life. Who knows what this somewhat insane person wants to do? But Iran is, as I said earlier, Iran is preparing itself for worst case scenarios.
It does appear, though, that we are in the early stages now of a Third World War, because this has to spread somehow. If these escalations, which now seem impossible to avoid, are forthcoming, that is, you see now the desperation is setting in Europe. Zelensky's announced that he's discussing with the Europeans now about confiscating Russian oil on ships. So not just seizing the ships, but then taking the oil, because this is used for war, which is, one doesn't have to get into this, but this kind of insecurity and escalation is happening at a time when Russia itself is reconsidering everything. That is, there's an immense pressure in Moscow now after the attack on Iran, where they're saying, why aren't we behaving more like Iran? We should have, the British don't think twice about launching Storm Shadow missiles into Russian cities. They would never dare this if it took a page out of Iran's book, that is to actually have a proper deterrence, that is to make countries fear attacking Russia again. So it appears that at the same time as the Europeans plan for another round of escalation, there's so much pressure on Russia to say, no, this is where we have to now draw the line and push back in a big way. I don't think Putin, no matter how popular he would be, has that much ability to push back against the pressure building up. So, you can see things getting really out of hand here in Europe as well. And as we mentioned, we talk a lot about, desalination plants, that is the water, the energy fields, which is, of course, energy is everything. But the fertilizers, because the Europeans, they block the fertilizers from Russia and Belarus to hit world markets. And now, of course, with the entire Middle Eastern region shutting down, this is going to be a huge food crisis. If you would predict how conflicts would spread and be cautious about these unknown variables, there's no way anymore to predict where this is going to go, because this will impact every corner of the planet. When energy is short, when food is short, every sensitive region of the world could then be, descend into chaos. This is, it's so irresponsible. And yet, when you look at the media, they still hold on to the narrative, though, that, well, liberate Iranians. No one questions why the Epstein class, as you call them, why they are endowed with this mission to liberate little girls. It is insane, but I don't know. Where do you look to as the main concern of where this can really just, spiral out of control on a global scale? I mean,
I don't think the West really recognizes, nor does Western media recognize how discredited they are and how widespread support for Iran is across the region and across the world. In Arab countries, they are cheering Iran on as Iran bombs these Arab family dictatorships, as it bombs U.S. bases or U.S. assets. People across the region are cheering, and across the world, people are supporting Iran. The West has lost its influence. It's only able to maintain mind control over its own parts of its own population, mostly older people. But it's difficult. I mean, it's impossible to say because each of these variables are very big. They have huge consequences, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, whether it's natural gas, whether it is Russian oil, whether each of these elements are.
Oh, I think we've won. We've knocked out their Navy, their Air Force. We've knocked out their anti-aircraft. We've knocked out everything. We're roaming free. From a military standpoint, all they're doing is clogging up the strait. But from a military standpoint, they're finished. So how much longer?
That was President Trump minutes ago declaring that, hey, we don't need to worry about this. All these shows we've been doing apparently don't even need them. The war is basically finished. They're done. They're washed up. The war is soon going to be open. Therefore, so will the Strait of Hormuz. The oil price will be, there's no truth to any of that, folks. President Trump, I don't know what kind of game he's playing. I don't know if he thinks everybody's stupid and we're going to believe stuff like this. But I mean, these Truth Socials, he puts out these kinds of statements. He's just saying what he wants to believe and what he wants to be true. There is almost no relation to actual truth that's involved with that. And he knows it. And the way we know he's trying to fool us into thinking everything's fine, to calm the markets, whatever he thinks he's trying to accomplish here, the facts underneath are really telling. His actions, according to his orders, is what matter. We literally have breaking news just before this. CBS News is now reporting that the 82nd Airborne Division is now on deployment orders for the Middle East. Planning involves the Army's Global Response Force and 2 Marine Expeditionary Force units. This is on top of what we were telling you earlier today, that there is the USS Boxer. That's the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit. That's on top of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit with the USS Tripoli that was already steaming in that direction. Apache helicopters have been ordered to join the fight. A-10 Warthogs have been sent, actually are already on location and apparently are active trying to hit some of these shore batteries that are keeping the Strait of Hormuz under threat. All of those things, folks, have everything to do with a ground operation. So you've got a lot of Marines. Now you've got an Army quick reaction division. Could be potentially air assaulted, airlifted. Who knows how it can? There's any number of ways you can get in there, but those are infantrymen. Those are designed for one thing, to take on some sort of ground operation. Now that's on top of what President Trump, sorry about that, what's on top of President Trump yesterday, though, trying to calm again people by saying, hey, you know what? I have no plans to send any troops to Iran. But if I were, I wouldn't tell you. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious by now. The actions say the opposite, that's exactly what he's planning to do. And listen, this just underscores another evidence and another piece of data that is showing us that this has not been wired tight from the beginning. We clearly thought when this thing started that, kind of a shock and awe would topple the government, that they were weak, that assassinating the senior leader, which the Israeli intelligence apparently provided and said, yep, we've got him in our sights. We know where he's going to be. We can kill him. This thing could be over before it even starts. That would only be something you would believe if you had surrounded yourself only with a bunch of yes men. People are telling you what you want to hear, because anyone who has known the region, who understands the country of Iran, understands the people of Iran, understands their history, understands what they have suffered, the very nature of their regime and the nature of their religion, would be able to tell you that that's not going to knock them out. There is a system. It's not like, say, Saddam Hussein or even Muammar Gaddafi, that was more around the cult of personality. You get one guy out and there was some reasonable projection that you could actually have that kind of a collapse. And in fact, we did see that. Once Saddam Hussein fled, once Gaddafi died in Libya or left, then the whole thing just collapsed. There was a lot of things that are different with that, but none of those things are different, or none of those things are present that allowed that in the country of Iran. Completely different situation, and yet that seems to be what President Trump thought. Now, remember, even before that thing started on the 28th of February, in January, we were just about on the cusp, and he gave every signal that we were about ready to attack. And then, no, they decided at the last minute we need actually more air power. So they bring in another aircraft carrier strike group. And then once that got on site, then they're ready to go. And they said, no, actually, we need a little bit more air defense, and we need to send that to some of our regions. So that was delayed again, meaning that you haven't thought any of this through. Now, then, here we have days into this, you have the Tripoli being sent. And then apparently they thought, no, we actually need a little bit more than that. Now then, there's the USS Boxer. And now then, there's the 82nd Airborne Division. The 82nd, you may recall, we talked about how they had canceled an operation that they had, or an exercise. And that's after this war had started, which shows that no one was even thinking about the ground force with the U.S. Ground forces, with the 82nd Airborne. They were going on doing something else. Now it's another thing, just flying by the seat of your pants. So if I have a lot of problems with what the President of the United States is doing, I've also got a lot of problem with the Pentagon, because there was some reports out before the war started that Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff had alerted and said that there was a lot of problems that could happen. There was a leaked intelligence report that said that they warned about so many of the things that are happening ahead of time. So some people definitely knew. But if you're the chief advisor, military advisor for the president, and if you're the Secretary of Defense and it's your job to have contingencies and have them resourced, then you should have been having all these people on alert already. They should already have been prepared to deploy, instead of figuring it out on the fly after they're needed. Because I'm telling you, military operations don't work when they're not wired tight. And when you're talking about, you don't have the resources, you don't have the planning, you don't have the logistics pipeline prepped up ahead of time. All those things are necessary to have success. And of course, that also goes into the planning, because you do rehearsals, you do iteration after iteration of war gaming. This doesn't work, that doesn't work. Well, let's change this, let's do that. You do all that on a board or in a computer simulation to give you an idea, so you don't make mistakes on the ground. But we didn't do that. We didn't take the time, or we didn't do the effort. I don't know. So now, instead of doing all those wargaming things on a computer and say, well, that didn't work, let's try this and let's do that, we're doing it on the fly. And so you can't move people on a computer. You just hit reset and try it again. But in a real war like this, people are already dead. People are hundreds of people, Americans, are already wounded. This was like 4 or 5 days old that there were 200 had been reported that were wounded. Who knows what the number is today? But that's what we know so far. And now we're trying to figure all this stuff out on the fly. Even the USS Boxer here, it'll probably take another week to 10 days before it can arrive on location, if it's at full steam ahead. And of course, then you get there, that means you wouldn't have any time to prepare, any time to kind of get your bearings set, do rehearsals, any of that kind of stuff. You might have to go straight into operation, or you continue to wait. But let's continue on with why I say that it looks like that all the evidence looks like we are actually getting ready to go in. This was reported in in Axios today, that Trump is the target of this operation may be Karg Island. We've talked about this several times, but there's some additional information now Taking Karg Island would only be launched after the U.S. military further degrades Iran's military capacity around the Strait of Hormuz. According to this person with knowledge of the White House, we need about a month to weaken the Iranians more with strikes, take the island, and then get them by the balls and use it for negotiations. Okay, that is really problematic. If you really believe that, and by all accounts, it seems like we do, then you're thinking, okay, this is some of the same thinking that went into the launch of the war in the first place. We think that remember, Jack Keane was famous at saying this. Gary, we had that soundbite from I think it was January from Jack Keane. It was talking about how weak the government was going to be. Is that something you have handy? If you don't worry about it. Okay, we'll just go on that. But that's what he was saying then, and that.